Hey, everyone, it is the nerdy entrepreneur. And now every single notification on my phone is going off because I am live. It has been a little while since we've done one of these lives, so I want to start doing this now, to get into a habit um, with those on who are subscribers to the channel and to grow our tiny, tiny community a little bit more. So, if you could see the title, we're going to talk about how to start a newsletter business from scratch because I am the nerdy entrepreneur and we start things. So, also, Stevie the Cat's around, so you're probably going to see him Memorial Day here in the States for us. So, for those of you, forgive if you hear folks around because I'm pretty close to the outside, so you could hear people packing up their cookouts and stuff like that. But to what the show is about today. Today is about how to start a newsletter business from scratch. Why? Because I'm in the process of doing that. If you've been paying attention a little bit on, if you're already kind of in the space a little bit, or you're curious about what you'd like to do, or you're following certain people on X or on, some other spaces, the business of newsletters gets brought up quite a bit. And it was a big push for it a couple of years ago, when we had all the, shutdowns, people were in their houses and had nothing else to do. Some people started newsletters, and some of those newsletters have grown on to do, really big things. And for instance, The Hustle was a newsletter. For those of you who might have ever heard of it, it used to be a very big newsletter. Sam Parr's, one of Sam Parr's businesses that he's exited out of. Um, there are other newsletter companies called the Morning Brew. For those of you who paid attention to any business stuff, that's a big business newsletter. And, Too Long Don't Read is another newsletter that's focused on the tech space. And there are just a bunch of newsletters out there. Some of these newsletters are, highly successful, you know, and I decided, what, let me put my hat in the ring for a newsletter. Why? Because I write copy, I write emails, and that's my thing. And I was like, well, I can do that. That's why I figured that I can do that. I know how to manage one. I have managed other people's newsletters before. I have my own newsletters and other things. So why not start something and see where it goes? Now, to put some, put a little bit of a rub the shiny off, as I've heard. The newsletter business is not an instant moneymaker for most people in terms of a lot of money, right? And there's a lot of factors that go into creating the type of newsletter business that you want. Okay, because there's some people, they make a newsletter, they give it 6 months to build it up, put issues in it, try to get some monetization, and then they go and sell it. They flip them, and then they do go on to the next project. And I've seen that plenty of times too. Um, but for some people who might want to keep theirs a little longer, and they're thinking, hey, this is my way out of my job, or, they want something else to do that's going to give them a certain amount of income every month. Maybe the newsletter business is or is not for you. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit for, because we're gonna maybe do a series of me doing live streams talking about this, right? Because there's people who've got into this newsletter business and they're struggling and having to pivot what that business does, because they were like, "Ooh, I'm gonna make millions of dollars because the Morning Brew did," and not understanding the process that the folks at the Morning Brew have had to go through with different reiterations of their newsletter. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, so that when you go out there and you're doing your newsletter thing, hopefully you start in a much better place than a whole bunch of other people out there on internet land started with their newsletter. Okay. Now we got to define a few things, because we hear, oh, start a newsletter and stuff like that. I'm talking about a very specific type of newsletter. Okay. Now, if you have a marketing business, or you have a marketing business or you sell online products and you sell courses and stuff. The newsletters I'm talking about are completely different from that. Okay? Those newsletters are primarily built for you to continue to advertise, build a relationship, advertise to your audience. That's what those newsletters are built for. The newsletters I'm talking about are in a lot of cases are more the traditional sense of the word of a newsletter, right? An editorial of some magnitude is what we're talking about. We have to define this because there's a lot of people using the term newsletter all over the place, and we all mean different things. And so people jump in this thing not understanding that they're making the wrong type of kind of product. Okay. The newsletter that I have started is a local newsletter that is specific to a certain group of people. And the purpose of this newsletter, or the value that it hopes to bring to our current subscriber base, is that it tells them or alerts them about things to do in the city that it's based out of that would be interesting for them. That's the purpose of this newsletter. Okay. This is the type of newsletter. So I'm going to curate events and link those events in a newsletter. Is the primary purpose of that newsletter is to help people find things to do in their city that aligns with their interests. There are other types of newsletters that don't do that. They aggregate news, maybe in their city, maybe in their region. Mine is a local newsletter focused on things happening in and around this particular city. Uh, Other people's newsletters are going to be a bit different. Okay. A lot of popular newsletters that you hear about that are local newsletters, because I'm have a local newsletter business here, are focused on things like, oh, it's the mom's newsletter or parents newsletter, or most of them are focused actually on business. Okay. They're focused on going after a certain business group, or they're focused on aggregating news in that region, local news. So there's another newsletter called Nap Time Scoop. It is focused on being kind of a local news letter in the most traditional sense of the word. My newsletter is a local newsletter that talks about stuff in the city and around the city that pertain to the interests of a certain group of people, which are nerds. Right? So it's a newsletter that pertains to that a certain group of people, nerds, look for things to do around the city that a nerd might be interested in. That could be an exhibit at the zoo. That could be a concert by the orchestra where they're going to play Jurassic Park. It could be a Lego Fest. It could be a convention. It could be a place to eat that has a certain theme, right? Those are the things that newsletter is primarily focused on for those groups of people. So people who are not interested in those things would not be the ones joining the newsletter. Okay. And I want to do that because I actually live in the city and I figured, great, this will be a fun project, something I'll be interested in. I learn more about the city. I'll get to talk and meet different people, build more relationships. And it'll make me some money on the side because I will allow advertising in the newsletter. Never in my process for this particular project was I thinking, okay, well, I'm going to make a salary off of this newsletter that is going to be able to replace any of my income. That wasn't my thought process for this particular newsletter. So I did not gear it up to be that thing. Because maybe if I were going to do that, I would choose a completely different area to look at if I was thinking about that. Did I intend to make money with this newsletter? Yes, I do. I'm not intending to make a whole lot of money. That might very well happen though, right? But that's not my particular intention. The intention was to really get to know people. People get to know me because I'm the owner of the newsletter, and I'm going to be a bit more vocal and out there because of it, which leads to other opportunities that I'm interested in anyway because I'm a nerd, right? And that's always cool. It's always cool to get some perks, right? And make money that pays for the newsletter. It's acquisition. It's acquisition costs, meaning how I get subscribers, um, the tech related to the newsletter, and even put myself a stipend for me doing things on the newsletter. That's it. Or am I expecting to make, 60,000 a year, 80,000, 100,000 a year to myself payment for newsletter? No, I'm not. If it winds up happening, great. But um, these are one of those income streams. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a fun thing to do. I'll be able to do it. I'm structuring this newsletter in a way that if I wanted to turn it over to a VA, I can give video instructions and they'll be able to do it. But make enough money that I could potentially afford to have a VA spend a few hours doing a newsletter when I don't feel like doing it. Um, if that happens, that may or may not happen, and make enough money to give me a stipend. So if a VA, this would be a full time thing. If I got a part time VA every week uh, to structure this newsletter once I got those things in place, the newsletter would have to be monetized enough in order to do that, right? So those are the considerations that I have for this current newsletter in its iteration. This might change over time. Depends on how well the newsletter grows, how well we're able to acquire, fill in our ad space. But typically, I don't have such high standards for the newsletter in terms of what I think success should be for me. If I make enough that I could pay for the newsletter, pay for its acquisition, and buy me some shrimp dinners or an occasional convention ticket, it's a success in my book. Now, for those of you out there who want to start your own newsletters, that might not be the bar for you. I'm talking about the bar like, oh, if it makes a few $100s, pay for itself, give me a couple of dinners. I'm happy because I'm happy talking about the topic and I'm getting other things out of it. I'll be getting a little bit of prestige out of it. People get to know me in my area around the things that I like because I'm the owner of this. And it won't be so much about, oh, well, this will pay for the rent and everything else. That may not be what you're looking for. You might want to start a newsletter business because you want to aspire to be like the Morning Brew or Nap Time Scoop, where you have a newsletter that's bringing in, 140,000, maybe 200, 300,000, maybe, $1 million a year. And you want to, if you want that, you can build it. There is a long road ahead that a lot of people are finding out, building out these local newsletters that they did not consider. And so you just want to be mindful of your considerations when you are going into this business. Because even though, for the most part, it's a low cost, low barrier to entry business to get into, it is still a business that you have to create considerations. Because as much as this, you know, it's a hobby for me, this is a hobby business. I like my hobbies to make money, right? And my newsletter will be a business, it will be profitable, right? The goal for my newsletter is to be profitable. I don't care if it's only, $200 profitable. It will be profitable because that's the way I'm structuring it. So when you get into whatever topic you choose, you need to figure out a few things. One, how are you going to monetize your newsletter? Okay. Are you going to sell ad space like me and look for sponsorship and all that other stuff? Are you going to use that newsletter as a vehicle to sell a course or the service that you provide? You know, will it be a paid newsletter where there's maybe a freemium or a paid version of it? There are newsletters like that. There are plenty of, for those of you who are into stocks, there are newsletters where it's monthly pay. There's one I could think off the top of my head, but there's plenty of newsletters like that. And maybe that's what you want to do. So there's a process you're going to have to go through in creating the content and getting it out there and playing with pricing and how you're going to get your customers to subscribe to your newsletter and how long they subscribe, right? So if you're thinking about monetization, you need to think about what topics get you the most bang for your buck. Because of the space I'm in, I'm limited to how much I can charge people at this point because I don't have a very high subscriber count and there's certain things that haven't been proven yet. But if you look at newsletters like Too Long Don't Read, they charge a lot of money for ads in a newsletter. Last time I looked, which this is a while ago, they were charging like $6,000 for a banner ad or half of the newsletter. Okay. Now I can't turn around right now and say, "Hey, y'all give me $6,000 and you can advertise my newsletter." I am not to that point. And I may never be to that point with this newsletter just because of the kind of topics I'm talking about, right? Maybe. I could probably garner a couple of hundred. And over time, as it grows and more things are proven, monetization, everything, I probably could get maybe $500 an issue, maybe, right? For one ad at some point. But that point is not necessarily today. But there are certain topics that you're going to be able to charge maybe $200 an ad off the bat, right? But there are certain topics that allow that. And those tend to be very niche, or they're geared towards businesses or people who are high net worth. And so when people start these newsletters, they don't think about that. Some of your newsletters will have to be about volume. How much volume can you bring in that an advertiser will be willing to pay that money? Or is there a paid version of newsletter? How much you'll be able to charge that people will be willing and find value in spending that money to get access? And those are things that you have to consider if you're going to go into the newsletter business, particularly the local newsletter business. For example, there are people, and it's funny because, I grew up around local businesses and I've done a lot of business with different types of local businesses. So I understand the ecosystem of how that works. But a lot of people who jumped into the newsletter space did not understand the ecosystem of how these things work. Okay. Because they didn't grow up in local and paid attention to the local businesses around them, right? They're very much white collar individuals jumping into this stuff, or they're very young jumping into this stuff. But if you think you're going to go to a lawn care company, Charlie's Lawn Care, and you think you're going to charge them $500, or you think you're going to charge them $200 to run an ad in your newsletter, think again. They're going to laugh at you. They're not going to be interested. It's going to be a while before you can attract certain businesses to want to advertise in your newsletter. And some people are finding that to be a huge growing pain um, as they continue to grow their newsletter. I've seen some newsletter pricing for who they're attracting on their newsletter to who they're trying to get to pay for it to be kind of outrageous, which is why it's hard for them to break even. They're spending, they can't break even with the newsletter. I was like, yeah, because your prices for what you're offering is outrageous and it's nothing proven. And you don't understand the ecosystem of how certain demographics feel they get taken advantage so much. So they're very skeptical, and how you'll have to build up that trust before you to get some of those prices that you're asking for, because they saw the morning brew do it, they do it. So there's a lot of people that, oh yeah, they got subscribers, they've been around, but they're not really making money. So if you're going to do this for the money, which you absolutely can and make good money, you have to be a little bit more intentional. Maybe you don't need to make a local newsletter. Maybe your newsletter should be a little bit more open. Maybe it should be a national or worldwide newsletter. What doesn't matter. Be mindful of the topics you choose. It has to be something that you can continually do, or you have the money to pay somebody to do if you're putting that investment in. And you have to be, if you're looking for sponsorship, you're going to have to build that pipeline of sponsorship up. Build that pipeline of people who might be interested in advertising in your newsletter. And that right there in itself is a job, because you got to be able to sell your own space, which I have sales skills, I have marketing skills. So it'll be a little easier for me than it may be for you if maybe your skills are more operational, but not so much you can talk to someone on the phone and convince them of, convince them of spending whatever the amount is with you in your newsletter. So just be mindful, of those things. Um, and I wanted, because that's really important. A lot of people start newsletters and then they want to sell them because they couldn't monetize them. So I just want to be mindful. Those are some important things that you need to be mindful of if you decide to jump into the newsletter land and start maybe a local newsletter or any newsletter all from scratch, because we're talking about those types of newsletters. If your newsletter is attached to your business, so let's say you're a content creator, you're a YouTuber like me, and you newsletter, like, we're going to do a newsletter here too, don't worry. I have been lacking in my duties as someone who does email marketing, right? But there will be a newsletter for this channel, right? So if it's the purpose of having newsletters for your channel is to take your subscribers, um, being able to communicate more with subscribers, let them know when you have video or a live like this, or that maybe of course or something, it's a very good idea if you're a YouTuber to build an email list, right? And there are plenty of paid and free tools. You can do what you want with that. But in terms of most of the time when we do this, we're not looking to monetize the newsletter with sponsor ads. We can. Most of the time, we're doing it to build that connection, and we're trying to sell our courses, or we have affiliate links that we want to, push out there so that we can get affiliate commission, which is great ideas. So I encourage for those of you who have YouTube channels or will in the future, or maybe you have an Instagram account, build a newsletter, build those people up, talk to those people, send them back to your old content, send them to content like, like this, put the affiliate links in there. It's a great way to get money, right? But in terms of our original topic of the type of newsletter that we're building, it's not based on a prior media like a YouTube channel, or Instagram account. This is its own separate media, putting it out there as itself as a media publishing company. Right. In this case, is one that's going to be fun for me because I get to know some people. I get to help people find some cool stuff, and we'll monetize it so I can come on here and show you my shrimp dinner that was paid for by my local newsletter that you got to see me start right here. So it's going to be a fun journey. I'm going to show you some things about it. But those are some stuff I just had to get that kind of stuff out the way for you guys. So whoever watches this live stream back, you get a little educated as to how this goes. That way, if you start your own newsletter, you're not starting in a place of, oh crap, I screwed up, like many folks I've seen around. Now, how to start a newsletter from scratch? You get to the next part of this. Well, one, you got to find a topic. Okay, find the topic that you are going to be in the mood to write about. Especially if you're doing a more editorial newsletter, right? Substack, which I have a few of those. Substack, you see a lot of editorial newsletters in Substack. It is very about the writing. There are people who write so much they shouldn't write, to be honest with you, but they write because that's, Substack is a lot of editorial stuff going on there. Um, in this case, for the local newsletter that I've started, I'm using Beehive. I know you've probably seen 1,000,001 commercials on Beehive. If you haven't, or if you've been on X in this space, you've seen Beehive mentioned 1,000,001 times. Yes, I'm using Beehive for this. And the reason why I am using a Beehive for this and not something else like ConvertKit or Aweber, which I've used all those things because I'm agnostic to most of this type of email technology, is because I felt that it would serve a purpose, and I was curious about the platform because I haven't used Beehive before. So I was like, you know what? Let me just do it on here. If I don't like it, if I hate it, I will move the newsletter to a different platform. Right? I'll do that move. I've done it before. And so I'm messing around. I'm learning more about Beehive and the things I like and things I don't like, and building newsletter there. There's some features on it that I kind of liked, that I was like, okay, this will be beneficial for the type of newsletter I'm creating. This is actually beneficial for my subscribers. So I am doing building it on Beehive. I am on the paid version of Beehive. So quick announcement, my newsletter, which I started back in February, is now past 1,000 subscribers. So I'm now paying $129 a month for the max version level on Beehive, which I might downgrade it because I have no idea what's the biggest benefit of this one. Because apparently they just recently changed their pricing structure, which has been annoying. So the price I can have 2,500 subscribers for $59 on the tier that's under the tier I'm on, but I'm on the max tier, which only gives me priority help and some email news that of course I don't need. So I might switch down in a 10 publications. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep it for a couple months. I'm gonna see what's going on, and I'll I'll see what's going on with it, right? Because I don't think it's necessary, but I'm on it. I've already paid for it. We're gonna ride this. We're gonna ride this horse out a little bit, right? So I'm using Beehive. You don't have to use Beehive if you're starting yours. You can use a bunch of other newsletter softwares. Just take a look and see if it's going to serve the purposes that you need it to serve for you. For me, it's just going to serve the purpose. I think it's good. They have a post section and all that stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use it. My subscribers seem to be okay. And it's actually helping those who want to go see back issues. So I'm that's why I'm keeping it for right now. But if it changes, I will let you guys know on another live stream at some point. So that's the tech I'm using. No, that's not all the tech I'm using. So now I've acquired my subscribers through paid advertising. Now I know how to run paid advertising. Okay. I'm using Facebook ads in this case. Um, Facebook ads in this case for this one. I know how to run paid advertising. Okay. So I used Facebook ads to actually get subscribers for my newsletter. If you are starting getting subscribers for your newsletter and you don't know how to run paid advertising, I wouldn't suggest you start out with that unless you learn a little bit about that platform. That way you don't, wind up dumping and burning money in a bucket because you don't know what you're doing. So just be careful. I've been doing that. I've been running paid advertising for over 10 years. And so I have experience and I know what I'm willing to spend and burn in the bucket. If you've never done it before, you can learn how to do it. Absolutely. But just be careful, learn a little bit before you just press the button on. Okay. Um, some people, when they start their newsletter, they go for free. They go into Facebook groups and they talk to the admin. They sweet talk the admin and they get their subscribers that way. I've seen people do referral programs to get subscribers. I've seen people push a lot of organic. I've seen people just do all sorts of things to get subscribers. But my acquisition of subscribers was through paid media, Facebook, and I'll probably expand it out a little bit later as the newsletter is profitable and has more subscribers from other channels. But right now, that's been pretty good for us. So that's how we've been getting our subscribers. So because of that, I have integrations that work in between Facebook and Beehive, and that is called Zapier. So I use Zapier to get the leads from Facebook to Beehive. And it's been working pretty good. That's the other tool that I use. So I use Beehive as a platform. I use Zapier as another platform. I also have a Google Sheet for backup in case stuff happens, because sometimes things happen. So I always use it as a backup. And acquisition wise, I use Facebook or I use Meta platforms as a way to get my customer acquisition down. Okay. So that's pretty much all the tech that I use for the newsletter. So newsletters can be very low tech, which is a good thing, or a little bit more advanced. It depends on what you want that thing to do. I keep mine really simple. I just needed subscribers, and I want the subscribers on a newsletter to be marked as new subscribers. And I want a backup system of having a Google Sheet. So I have all my subscriber data in a Google Sheet that gets updated each and every time, just to have a backup so I don't always have to export out of Beehive itself. I always have another backup. That's just me. That's from years of experience controlling and managing other people's email lists and having things blow up. And learning my lessons. So that's why I do that. So in terms of tech, it's very low tech. So if you're going to start a newsletter, whatever topic you choose, you're going to have to pick your email service platform. It could be Beehive, it could be ConvertKit, it could be ActiveCampaign, Aweber. You want to use Substack for that aesthetic. Whatever you want to use is up to you. I'm currently using Beehive from my iteration, but there's other newsletter platforms that you can use for whatever reason. It could be because it's free or they have a free tier and you're trying to find out some things. I had to use the paid tier because I was getting all of my all my subscribers from Facebook. So I had to make sure that I can have automation set so that it will work well. So I started off paid. You might want to start off free, see what that do, but understand if you start off on a free tier for a lot of these platforms, you will not have the functionality to use Zapier to connect, because a lot of them do not have direct integrations with Meta platforms to get the leads. So you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do there. Okay. Um, you have to choose if you want to go organic route. Organic is slower, but hey, if you have connections to people that can help you get a good kickstart to your list, then go ahead and do it. I like to get there a bit faster, and I'm not cheap. That's the other thing. I'm not cheap, so I'm willing to spend money on ads to figure something out and get there a little faster. And so I'm willing to do it. So I'm willing to sacrifice not doing certain things in order to figure out something else that I think is important. So that's up to you and to where your pocketbook is and what you choose to do. But that's all the tech that I'm currently using for our newsletter. So remember, we got to pick a topic. Oh, well, first, figure out what your intention is. This a newsletter you're trying to monetize as an editorial aggregate newsletter? Are you trying to get known in a space for something? Me, I want to be known in my local area because of this newsletter. So kind of like a mini publishing media company, right? That's what I want to be known for, especially in the space that I am in. Great. Maybe you want to be known for crypto stuff. Maybe you want to know for something else. That's really up to you. You got to decide what you want to do there. On top of that, you know, what does monetization look like for you? Is it going to be paid ads and sponsorships? Is it going to be you selling courses or being an affiliate person? What are you going to do on that? So make sure that you have those things decided, figure out your monetization, and then where would you like to hit monetarily? Now, I haven't figured that out yet. I told you a little bit of that. If it buys me a couple of shrimp dinners and I get that, I'm pretty much happy. But I haven't figured out what that number actually is, and I'll probably do a live stream. We'll talk a little bit more about numbers in that aspect. So that is the thing there as well. Let's see, what else do you need? Know how you getting your subscribers. Know how you get your subscribers. Are you going organic, or are you going to ask some friends who are bigger social media stars to help, you know, jump on the list? How are you going to grow your subscriber base? I use paid media, but maybe you want to go organic. Maybe you want to maybe you want to buy ads in other people's newsletters and stuff like that. You're going to have to, make that choice or choices. Um, and then how are you going to get them on the list? Now, for me, I've been extremely fortunate and lucky. I have not had to give anything away in order to attract people on my list. Not yet. But I was thinking about creating some type of lead magnet that would be beneficial to people joining my newsletter. But I got to be careful about what it is because I'm looking for a specific type of person, someone who identifies as an adult nerd, right? I don't want to pick something that will attract everyone who doesn't need to be on my list because I pay for these people to be there. So whatever I choose that thing is and go and figure out how to do it, I got to make sure that it's something that is more appealing to us in the nerd herd before I do it. So that's going to be something I'm going to be looking into. I think that's about it for the tech and about some of the things you need to keep in mind if you're going to start a newsletter business from scratch. Pick the platform that you're going to use for your newsletter. Figure out monetization, how you think you're going to monetize your newsletter. Pick the topic and ask yourself the question, is that topic interesting enough that people would want to join a newsletter and read about it every week, or read about it every day, or read about it 3 times a week or 4 times a month, whatever you're choosing? Okay. Because if it's a topic that you can't write about 4 times a month, I say probably not a good newsletter topic to talk about, right? On my newsletter, I'm putting out about weekly. I'm intending to have the newsletter come out at least twice a week. Or have one main newsletter and the second newsletter be a big ad. Um, you know, advertorial, meaning ad that is look like an editorial, or ad that's content wise, just for monetization purposes, and also about something really cool that I know my people will like on my subscribers. So you got to think about those things. Because if you can't write about it, if you can only write about that topic once a month, that is not a good newsletter. Monthly newsletters are not the way, in my opinion. You need to stay away from monthly newsletters only because the bigger your newsletter list gets, the more Google you'll run into the situation of Google wanting to know, um, will be really watching how many people interact and subscribe. So the last thing you need is a newsletter that only comes out once a month that most people forget that they're subscribed to, that all of a sudden you get a whole bunch of subscribers and they weren't qualified to be on the newsletter because they don't like the topic. So you want to send out, I think you should send out a newsletter at minimum weekly, is my opinion. Some people put out newsletters bi-weekly. Maybe it's a bi-weekly newsletter. It depends on the topic. I try to keep mine's weekly. I would like to have it twice a week, but as we grow and we build more relationships, we'll be able to hopefully put out more output than a weekly newsletter. But start off weekly so that you can get your work done and show consistency. That's going to be important. So if you can't talk about it at least once a week, uh, probably not worth doing a newsletter, to be honest with you. So, just keep that in mind as you are creating what your newsletter is going to be from you. The next thing, pick a name. I'm terrible at naming things. So, maybe a name is after the locality. My newsletter is named after the locality. Maybe a newsletter is named around the topic. Maybe a newsletter is about something special, a mascot or something. Whatever it is, make sure you pick a name for your newsletter. You might want to stick close to what your topic is in relation to, so people don't have to think, or it dog whistles to a certain group of people because they know what that thing means. So whatever that is, make sure you pick a name for your newsletter, and don't overthink it, but so much. Okay, that's important. Don't overthink it, but so much. Um, Give yourself a launch date for when you're going to build all your stuff out, when you're going to launch a newsletter. And don't worry about having a welcome sequence at this stage of the game. So, a welcome sequence, for those who don't know, when people subscribe to your newsletter, what's the first couple of emails they get? For most people, the first email is, please confirm your subscription. But after that, is there any other emails that go out that tell them about something? You don't always have to do that. My newsletter does not have a welcome sequence in it whatsoever. Just make sure that you actually get the newsletter written and sent. Okay. So in terms of starting a newsletter business, I think that's some of the main things you have to worry about when you are about to start. The topic, can you write about it at least once a week? Picking out a name, picking your platform that you're going to use to send, figuring out how you're going to get subscribers, figuring out how you're going to monetize before you do anything. What's your goal monetarily for this newsletter? Is it to get to 6 figures or 7 figures? Is it to be to build to a certain degree and then sell it? Flip the newsletter. Are you using that newsletter to leverage your brand reputation of yourself within your community or in the world or in your space? Figure you're gonna need to answer those questions, because if you can answer those questions then and get through them, then perhaps you're ready to start a newsletter from scratch, because it's not difficult to get the things and to start it, to at least have all the things. It is difficult for a lot of people to press send on that first email, right? It is difficult for people, okay, they're pressing send and they don't know how to outreach to get sponsors, or to get guest writers, because you can have a guest writer in your newsletter too. It's those things that becomes extremely hard. So if you're going to start a newsletter from scratch, keep these considerations in between: the tech you use, the purpose of the newsletter. What would you like to be with this newsletter? What financial thing or ego driven thing is the purpose? Because going into it, this may change. It might fluctuate. It might be that one day I said, you know what? I want to build this newsletter to, 10,000 people. And I want this newsletter to be, bring in 300 grand a year, right? I might change my mind and say, that's what I want, and be okay with things changing as you are in the pursuit of growing your newsletter business. Okay. Um, so just want to get that all out there. Hopefully this live stream was very educational for those of you who are um, going to be jumping into the space with the rest of us. And I hope that because of this live stream, it makes it a lot easier for you than it has been for some other people, and that you're successful in your pursuits. Now, I'm going to be sharing a lot about what's going on with this newsletter, where we are at, what's the goals, and everything else. So I'm going to end it just talking about that here. So look, with this newsletter, I was running ads. I just recently stopped the ads today, right? So May 27, 2024, I stopped running ads. Why? Because it was intention that the first thing I wanted to do, and I've already sent issues of the newsletter out, by the way, but what I wanted to do is get the newsletter to 1,000 subscribers. we are now over 1,000 subscribers. So I put a pause on the ads because now it's time to work on some other things. One, I want to try a different ad out, and I'm very busy because remember, this is a side project that we're growing, and I'm not going to have enough time to really do what I want to do with the new ads that I want to create for it. So I need to give myself some time to actually do it because it was going to require some extra work on on my part. So I'm gonna pause the ads while I'm working on new ads that will be launched in a few weeks, right? Hopefully sooner rather than later, but probably in a few weeks is when I'll actually be finished. That's one. Two, I want to concentrate in front loading the work with some of the things I need to do for the newsletter. So because I aggregate events that are happening, I want to make sure that I am 1 to 2 issues ahead. So I have to start building up that calendar right now. So that's going to give me time to do that as well. Need that time. And three, we want to work on outreach. Getting paid sponsorships and building out that pipeline so that people will soon be able to press a button, see what's open, and just buy without necessarily having to interact with me. So, got to build out these processes. I didn't think about, well, I thought about these processes, but I didn't build it out. I was like, let me focus on this and worry about that later. I've had people already buy an ad spot, so that was cool. So now it's time to build out those processes and put that in. Also, we don't really have a homepage. Yeah, so that has to be built too. So I built this newsletter to over 1,000 subscribers, and I haven't built a homepage. So I have to do that because now people in the community are asking me about a homepage that I don't have. So we got to do that. So I'm pausing the ads while I get some of this stuff together, so that we can have that done. Um, and hopefully I will get most of that done by the time I do this next live stream. So I don't know how many times I'm going to do this live stream. This might be a once a week or twice a week thing. We shall see. We're going to try to get a schedule here. That way, if you have questions or comments, you can join me on a live stream. I'll be able to put things in. And also, yes, we're going to have a newsletter list here, um, where you'll see a link, get to newsletter, and then I'll let you know when I'm on going to be doing these live streams. So I think we should stop now. It has been lovely on this Memorial Day. And I hope all of you who rewatch this gets the courage to maybe start researching to start your own newsletter. Let me know what you think in the comments. I will look over the comments. If anyone has a comment or a question, I will be doing more live streams talking about the newsletter project and how it's going and where we are. So until next time, all my nerdy entrepreneurs or soon to be entrepreneurs, make sure that you hold on. Let me do it. Yeah, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. That's how you support me doing what I do here. I am the nerdy entrepreneur. Until next time, peace.